everybody. All right. Welcome. We're back home. I'm back home. Sheridan is spending time with her family this morning, so you've got me today answering questions. I'm probably going to change the time of this Q&A, weekly Q&A, just so we can accommodate Sheridan's family thing that they're doing Zoom every week. And anyways, I want her to be able to join me for some of this, so I will probably switch it around just so you know. And wait for a second here for people to jump on. We got home yesterday from our quarantine vacation, and just a little update on what's going on here at the carriage house while I'm waiting for a few people to jump on and ask questions. My husband has been working hard while we were gone. He was here working. He's a CRNA at the hospital, but on his free time, he was working back here to get us moving forward with some of our construction on the carriage house and some of the things we want to do. One of the things that we spent a lot of time figuring out is whether we could get plumbing back here and get a bathroom and a sink. And it's looking like there's a possibility. It probably will not be for a few years because it's going to be very expensive. We are going to have to plumb probably from the street back, but it's good to know that there's a possibility of that, and we're working on cleaning out the other half of our carriage house and giving us basically doubling our space for our support groups, and then hopefully start doing some classes. So that's where we are looking. Even though right now we can't actually see each other in person, we are really hoping to move forward and be able, whenever all of this gets better, be able to offer some amazing support groups in person, maybe some classes. I'd love to start teaching dance again. I miss it so much. Anyways, the list of things is long. But in the meantime, I'm going to work on redesigning this room as a space to film things and start filming some courses. So we're working right now on a breastfeeding course, and I'd like to do a childbirth course, just online classes for women. So I'm excited about figuring out creating my photos/video studio back here in the carriage house while we're not holding groups. So, okay. I have one question that has come up. So for those of you who pop on right now, hey Andrea, I was just going to answer your question because you were the one person who wrote a question yesterday. I did post it pretty late. I'm sorry about that. We had a busy travel day. But if anyone who does jump on has a question, please feel free to ask and we will answer it. All right. Andrea, so your question is, how can I start to stockpile my milk in the freezer? Thanks. It's a great question, and usually when mommies are getting ready to go back to work, this is something that we talk about, right? We've got to figure out how I'm going to manage storing my milk. How can I make it effective space-wise? How can I make it easy to defrost? I know when I was first pumping for my daughter, I went back when she was 6 weeks old. I did not go back full time, but I was going back as a nurse and I was working nights, and I would just pump into my bag and I would put it in the freezer and didn't think anything of it. But there were so many little hacks and so many wonderful things I could have done that I now know make it so much easier when you're pumping and stockpiling your milk to go back to work. So a few things just to know. One, we usually don't encourage women to start pumping prior to like 2 weeks before 2 weeks before you go back to work. So if you are going back to work at 10 weeks postpartum, then at 8 weeks postpartum, you start to pump. If you're going back to work when your baby's 6 months old, you don't need to start pumping until like 2 weeks before your baby's 6 months old. So we usually don't suggest you start pumping less than 1 month or 6 weeks, because if you do pump when your baby is less than like 6 weeks old, you can really mess up your supply, meaning creating an oversupply. Now some women are like, oh, oversupply, woohoo, that's a great thing. And it can be, but it's also really challenging because it increases your risk for clogged ducts and mastitis. It it makes it so you have to pump every day because your body's over-regulated to what your baby needs. It can cause a lot of spitting up issues for babies, uncomfortable full bellies because your body thinks that it needs to make more than it does. So we usually suggest that you do not start pumping until you're really close to going back to work. And the big goal is to have a tiny bit of a stockpile in your freezer, but really when you're working, depending on the hours that you're working, you're going to pump while you're at work. That milk's going to come home with you and you're going to put it into the refrigerator, and that milk's going to be used the next day. So what you pump on Monday is used on Tuesday. What you pump on Tuesday is used on Wednesday. What you pump on Wednesday, so on. What you pump Friday is still good through the weekend for Monday. So you can leave your milk in the refrigerator 4 to 5 days without any problem. And so you really want to be giving fresh milk. There's a couple reasons for that. Frozen milk is wonderful. Don't think I'm saying don't give your baby frozen milk, but fresh milk it's much more alive. Like a lot of the antibodies and the alive components of breast milk haven't died in the freezing process. So frozen breast milk is still exponentially better than a whole bunch of other things you can give your child. But if you can give them fresh instead of frozen, just like at the breast is kind of like the best, right? Freshly pumped is going to be next. And refrigerated for a long time is going to be next, and freezer is going to be next. So if you can keep your milk fresh, you're going to just have more alive antibodies. You're going to have more of the incredible like alive part of the milk still available to your baby. So you really need this little stockpile in your freezer just in case there's some type of emergency, just in case you're for some reason not able to pump for one day, which would be really bad for your body, so I hope you're always able to. But you really shouldn't touch that freezer stash in theory. You should be giving your baby the fresh milk that you've pumped from the day before. And what we often find for a lot of women is they go back to work and they end up pumping more than their baby takes, because when their baby's away from them, their baby is like, meh, I'll just wait till my mom's home. And they might take little bits of milk and possibly not as much. So we might have a mom who's gone for 8 hours a day. She pumps 8 ounces, which would be common, about an ounce an hour. And maybe her baby only takes 4. And then when she gets home, her baby's like, Mom! And reconnects and nurses all through the evening, all through the night, all through the morning. And then during those 8 hours that the mommy's gone, the baby only takes 4 ounces. So now mom's not only got she's nursing at night, keeping the baby totally wonderful and satisfied and happy. And babies can regulate that themselves. Like they can not nurse for a short period of time while mommy's at work and make it up at night. But now this mom now also has an extra 4 ounces every day. So now she's not even touching her freezer supply. She's actually adding to it every day. So a lot of times when moms have created a big freezer supply before going back to work or go back to work and are able to pump really well, they end up having a ton of milk. And I would highly, highly suggest that if you are one of those moms who has a lot of milk in her freezer or realizes that you have more than your baby needs, that you consider donating it to another mom. There are many moms who would love donated breast milk. Exclusively breastfeeding moms who just need some help and maybe have an unexpected situation come up and they need donor milk, or moms who are going to work and aren't able to keep up with their babies but would love donor milk instead of formula. And in a situation like we're in right now, like a worldwide pandemic, although we haven't hit this point, there is always a possibility that formula will become really, really hard to come by, and that moms will not have money to buy formula, or formula won't be available. So in those situations, those of us who are breastfeeding mommies, we can actually help feed another child and donate that milk and keep a baby alive in pandemic situations, in national, international, worldwide disaster situations. Breastfeeding women often step in and their bodies can make milk for more babies. So if that's on your heart too, to pump, to donate to another baby, do it, because right now there are so many women who financially are having a hard time affording formula and potentially won't be able to get a hold of it. Right now that's not the situation we're in, but there's always a chance that becomes a challenge too. So anyways, throwing that out there. Now to actually get to your question, if anyone else who pops on, by the way, has a question, please write it in. But so how can you stockpile milk? The best way that I have seen people store milk, there's a few things that are really important. You want to store your milk in small amounts, especially if your baby is young when you're going back to work. If you are pumping 6 ounces and you store 6 ounces together, what ends up happening is your childcare provider has to defrost 6 ounces because it's all in one bag. The baby maybe takes 2, and now you've got 4 ounces that are just wasted, because once it's defrosted and warmed up, you really can't refreeze it and do that again. So we don't want to waste breast milk. It is too precious. We don't want to waste it. It is liquid gold. So because of that, we want to make sure we're storing it in small amounts. Maybe an ounce. So there's two different techniques I've seen people do. One is using like an ice cube tray and storing their milk in like ice cube size, 1 ounce little squares, putting them in a big Ziploc baggie in the freezer, and then being able to pull out however many little ounces you want and defrosting them that way. Now, ice cube size squares are pretty dense and they can be a little bit hard to defrost. So the other thing that I think is a really cool technique that women will do is they'll maybe store, let's say 2, maybe 3 ounces at the most in a bag, like a pump bag, but instead of letting it sit upright where the milk pools at the bottom, they seal the top really, really well, lay it down flat. So the milk then spreads out in a very, very thin on the bottom, and it freezes faster, but it also is easier to defrost because now it's not chunky like a square, it is flat. So once it's frozen, which doesn't take very long, you can take, gosh, I wish I had one here, like a soda box. Like, look, we drink a lot of LaCroix in our family. So like a LaCroix, like soda box. You cut off the top part of it. You got your milk that you froze it this way. You stand it up, and then you write the date and time on it, and you can stand it in this soda, the long, skinny soda boxes. Now, the nice thing about this is if you are going to be, you're going to be storing milk and utilizing it from the freezer, is you just add to the back. And then you take from the front, add to the back, take from the, so you always know you're using the oldest milk so that you don't end up going, oh my gosh, this is 6 months old and I can't use it. That's so frustrating. We don't want to find milk in the back of our fridge that we couldn't use. I mean, you can always use it for other things like lotion or bath or jewelry. I have milk still frozen from when I nursed Kylie 5 years ago that I'm planning on making jewelry with. So there's always something to do with milk. Don't throw it out. But if you are going to be using it frequently, you want to do this, line them up, write the day and time, and then add to the back, take from the front. And that makes it really easy for your care providers. You can just tell them, oh, like the milk that's in the front, go ahead and grab as many of them as you need, one at a time. They can defrost really fast. And then, it's not confusing. Your care provider's not searching through your freezer for the milk, not sure which one to use. So that's the technique and thing that I've seen work really well for moms. Also know that in a regular freezer, you don't ever want to store milk in the door part of it. You need to store it in the freezer part. And if you have a deep freeze, your milk can last like an entire year in a deep freeze, closer to 5 to 6 months in a regular freezer. So if you are feeling like you really want to stockpile, you want to have that deep freezer full of milk just to for comfort for yourself, then get a deep freezer and you can store it there for an entire year. But I would still suggest storing it freezing it flat, because then it's so much easier to store. You don't take up as much space and much easier to defrost. I hope that makes sense, Andrea. Let's see, you were told to do it in the 1 ounce cubes and you got an ice tray. You totally can do the 1 ounce cubes. That's a really great option. But I think the bags that are flat, they're just a little faster to defrost. And you can totally do 1 ounce bags as well, just like that. All right, yeah, in the back, perfect. Okay, does anyone have any other questions? Or Andrea, you're here with me. Do you have any other questions? Sorry for the late post yesterday. Like I said, we were driving home and re-entry, seeing our husbands for the first time in 5.5 weeks, and my parents for the first time, and it's probably been 7 weeks since I've seen them, and they live 2 blocks away, so we usually see them every day. It's been interesting. But yeah, the bags sound good. All right, well, you can totally use the bags. Oh, hello, friend, Ryan. Well, okay, I love this. Oh, your spring-loaded tray. Platinum's right out. So spring-loaded milk tray. I've not seen this. Spring-loaded milk tray. You'll have to link it. Can you link it in here? Show us. Yeah, and those of you that pop on that are working mommies, if you have special hacks, I want to know. I'm not away from my babies, so I currently don't pump at all. So, yay, thanks for the welcome home. Hey, Cass, how are you? Oh, friend, I miss you. All right, any other questions? I feel bad, like I'm just kind of wasting your time here. If no one has any other questions, we don't have to stay on, but I'd love to see you all and answer questions that you might have. I'm trying to think of anything else that's come up lately. For those of you who are on, I would really appreciate your help if you're willing to help me, and you can totally put it in the comments here, or you can private message me. Oh, how cool. First year's Breastflow Milk Storage Organizer. Thanks for linking it. That I'll have to take a look at it. That's awesome. I am working on, we're very close to filming actually, a breastfeeding class, an online breastfeeding course. And I've got a lot of ideas about how I want to do this, but basically it's going to be a video series of a handful of short videos for pregnant mommies who are interested in learning something about breastfeeding. So I'm wondering, for those of you who are here or who are even watching this in a replay, if you have things that you, hey Jenny, if you have things that you really wish you would have known, like, man, had someone in a class just said da 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 da, or when I took that class, the one thing that really I held on to or stuck out to me, like, I want to know from the mommy's perspective, like, what is it that you really feel like is valuable? What things do you want in a class? What would make you say, oh my gosh, I'm going to sign my best friend up for this breastfeeding class because I know it's going to be amazing? What are those things? Because I would really, really, really love to make sure this class is catered to the needs of the women in our community. I will say, the things I've heard so far, a lot of things that we're going to include in this class anyways, but one of the biggest challenges that I feel like almost every woman says, oh, I wish they would have just taught more about latch, and, or like positioning, like how do you position and latch the baby? And we totally are going to talk about position and latch in the class. The challenge with that is that it's like completely different for every boob and every baby, and depending on the birth of that baby, it would be different. So like a baby that was an induction who had a vacuum delivery, like where they pulled out, is going to latch differently than a baby who had no medication on board and born at home. Like it's very case specific. So it's hard to make those, like, teach those generalized, like, this is how you latch your baby. It's like, well, let me see your boob. Let me see your nipple. Let me see your baby. How big are they? How old are they? What's their jaw like? How much tension do they have? How was their birth? How are you doing after the birth? Like, there's so many things that make a difference with how you would, like, coach a mom and how to latch your baby. So I'm trying to figure out how to teach that while still leaving a lot of space for individualized care. One of the things I'm hoping to add to this breastfeeding course is that is like an add-on. You can like pay extra and get a Zoom consultation with me once your baby arrives. So like you have the class, and then once your baby arrives, we have an hour-long Zoom, FaceTime, in person, if all of this is, if they're local and we're allowed to do that. That way we can actually help with those types of things that are a little more specific. Let's see here. Ryan says, you use the Lancinol bags with it. Once they were full, move them to the deep freezer. How cool. I'm trying to see your thing. Thank you for linking those. That's awesome. I really appreciate it. Andrew says you can't think of more, but I'm sure after I log off. Isn't that the truth? Oh, that's the question I had, and now she's gone. Well, you can always message me. Do you want us to message that or just say it now? Oh, you can say it now if you've got stuff. I would love to have comments now. But if you want to message it, that's fine too. Whatever feels more comfortable. But I'm really excited about creating this course, and I'm mad at myself for not filming baby Audrey more. We've just been in well, when she was newly postpartum, I was in the middle of my crazy surgery stuff, and I was not like in the mindset of teacher mode. Like, I should be filming this newborn baby so that we can use this for teaching. Like, I wasn't mentally there. But now I have no newborn baby to film because she's 2 months old. Oh yeah, not questions, the things that you loved about breastfeeding class. Yes, I would love to know what those are. Either place, Ryan, whatever feels good to you, as far as where you would like to post them. I would love to know what they are here. You can totally message me also, either way. But yeah, that's what I need. I need to know what you really, really want in a course. And I'm also considering, and I would love to know, like, yes or no for this one. I'm also considering doing like a basics, like a breastfeeding basics course, and then a secondary add-on, like a beyond the basics idea, where we talk more specifically about like mastitis and thrush and going back to work and things that are kind of past the first 6 weeks. Like if you survive the first 6 weeks, here are some other things that might be presenting themselves. Introduction of solids. What do we do when we get close to 1 and everyone's telling us you're still breastfeeding your baby? Like those types of things that are kind of beyond that initial let's power you through. It's really tempting to talk about all of those things in an initial breastfeeding class, but if you don't make it through the first 6 weeks of breastfeeding, none of those other things really matter. So it's hard to know how to focus. So, hi Emily. All right, well, if no one has questions, I will jump off and get back to rearranging my space and creating a beautiful place to film. I'm so happy. Going back to work would have been gold. So there is FYI, and Andrea, I don't know if I mentioned this to you before privately or not. There is a woman in our area named Carolina, and she actually does a going back to work course. I don't know if she's doing it virtually at this point in time. I know she was doing it in person at one point in time, but you can totally reach out to Carolina. She's in our group here, so you can find her. And she's a working mama. She has a lot of personal experience in going back to work, pumping, how to manage all of that. So she actually does a full course on going back to work at breastfeeding. So that's amazing. And I'll probably have her on I'll probably interview her for our class because she is an expert in that. But let's see, hearing Sheridan tell about her baby's instincts. Let's see here, Andrea, sorry. Oh, just disappeared. Come back. For me, hearing Sheridan and telling me about baby's instincts was frightening? Was okay. I'm missing it. Hearing Sheridan talk about the baby instincts, that was good. Okay, that's good to know. Babies have really incredible instincts, and we so often ignore them or even try to stop them from doing their instincts. And so that's good to know. Babies' instincts. I think having, like I said, I wish I had videos. I wish I had videos of babies. I should probably reach out to some of my pregnant friends and ask them if I can video their newborns, because newborns and their instincts is so cool to watch them, and have those on videos would be really nice. Gotcha. But you were fighting. I see. I misread it. You were fighting the baby's natural instincts. Yes. It's so common to do that. because we teach moms, like, here's your position, here's your pillow, here's how you hold your baby, da 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 da. And we don't teach them, like, oh, watch your baby and look what they're gonna do. You know, it's different. His hands near your breast. Yes. Okay, so like all of those behaviors of him, like licking and rooting and pushing, and yeah, we don't really talk about that commonly. Thank you so much, friend. I will make sure we add that into our course. All right, friends, I'm going to go since there's no other questions, and you guys can let me know if there are. We will do Zoom again on Tuesday at 10 o'clock, and it's always fun on Zoom because I actually get to see you all and talk to you and not just talk to myself with comments. So anyways, we'll see you on Tuesday, and next week be looking for a different time. I'm going to try to figure out what time would work for Sheridan, but I like having her here with me. It's out of her comfort zone, but I love to bug her and make her do this with me. So we're going to find time to do it. All right. We'll talk to you guys later. Have a wonderful, wonderful Saturday. Bye.